The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of my apartment, sending crystal fragments dancing across the hardwood like tiny diamonds catching the afternoon light. Another wedding invitation. Another reminder that at 36, I was apparently failing at life's most basic requirement according to everyone around me. I stared at the elegant cream cardstock announcing the upcoming nuptials of my college roommate Phoenix to her investment banker boyfriend. The same Phoenix who used to say marriage was a patriarchal prison. The same Phoenix who swore we would be fabulous spinsters together, traveling the world and collecting art and stories instead of husbands. But there it was in flowing script. Phoenix and Sterling request your presence. The irony was not lost on me. Even Phoenix, the ultimate free spirit, had found someone to commit to before I could manage to keep a relationship alive past the 6-month mark. I swept up the glass with shaking hands, each shard a tiny mirror reflecting my frustration back at me. By the time I turned 36, I had survived a cheating ex-fiancé who left me 3 weeks before our destination wedding in Tuscany. I had endured a narcissistic situationship with a man who treated me like a part-time hobby for 2 crushing years. I had attended 2 canceled weddings, neither of them mine, and listened to countless hours of unsolicited advice from family members who seemed to think my singleness was a personal affront to their legacy. Maybe you should lower your standards, sweetheart, my Aunt Cordelia had suggested over Thanksgiving dinner, her voice dripping with false concern. Not every man can be a Prince Charming. Try not being so intimidating. My mother had chimed in, passing the cranberry sauce like she was passing judgment. Men do not like women who are too successful. It makes them feel small. Have you considered freezing your eggs? Just in case? My sister Aurelia had whispered conspiratorially, as if my fertility was a ticking bomb that might explode if we spoke too loudly about it. But the worst had come from my cousin Juniper, delivered with the casual cruelty that only family members can master. You will be alone forever if you do not settle. Some women are just not meant for marriage. I was done listening. Done pretending that their opinions mattered more than my own happiness. Done believing that my worth was measured by my relationship status. Done feeling like I needed to shrink myself to fit into someone else's idea of what my life should look like. As an event planner, I had orchestrated countless weddings over the past 12 years. I had seen the tears of joy streaming down radiant faces. I had witnessed heartfelt speeches that moved entire rooms to standing ovations. I had watched the blissful dances, navigated the inevitable family drama, and celebrated love in all its chaotic, beautiful forms. But the one person I had never seen celebrated? Me. Not my accomplishments. Not my resilience. Not my ability to build a successful business from nothing. Not my capacity to love deeply, even when that love was not returned. Not my strength in picking myself up after every devastating heartbreak. Nobody had ever thrown me a party for surviving, for choosing myself, for refusing to settle for less than I deserved. So I decided to plan one. Not a birthday celebration. Not a promotion party. Not some sad, pity dinner where friends would awkwardly try to cheer me up while secretly feeling grateful they were not in my shoes. A wedding. A full-scale, no-holds-barred, live-streamed wedding ceremony. To myself. The idea hit me like lightning on a Tuesday evening in March. I was sitting in my home office, surrounded by wedding magazines and vendor catalogs for a client's upcoming June ceremony, when it struck me with such clarity that I actually laughed out loud. The sound echoed through my empty apartment, bouncing off walls decorated with photos of other people's happiest days. Why should not I be the star of my own love story? I spent the next 3 sleepless nights researching sologamy, the practice of marrying oneself. What I discovered was both fascinating and heartbreaking. Women around the world were choosing to commit to themselves, to celebrate their own worth, to stop waiting for someone else to validate their existence. But most of them did it quietly, privately, almost apologetically. Not me. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it with every ounce of the passion and creativity I poured into my clients' dream weddings. This would not be some small, secret ceremony hidden away from the world's judgment. This would be a declaration. A revolution. A celebration so magnificent that nobody could dismiss it as anything less than what it was. An act of radical self-love. I called my assistant Raven first thing Monday morning. my voice still hoarse from lack of sleep, but steady with determination. Clear my calendar for April 15th, I told her, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. I am getting married. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Oh my gosh, finally. Raven's voice exploded through the speaker. Who is he? When did this happen? Why did you not tell me you were even seeing someone seriously? It is me, I said simply. I am marrying myself. Another silence, shorter this time, followed by what sounded like a coffee cup being set down very carefully. Boss, Raven said slowly. Are you having some kind of breakdown? Because if you are, we can talk about it. Maybe take a little vacation. I have never been more clear about anything in my life, I interrupted. I want you to help me plan the most beautiful wedding this city has ever seen. I want a rooftop venue with a view that will make people weep. I want flowers that look like they were arranged by angels. I want a cake that could feed an army. And I want it all live streamed so that every person who has ever made a woman feel like she was not enough can watch her choose herself instead. Raven was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice filled with something that sounded like awe, she whispered, "Holy shit. We are actually doing this." We were. The next 6 weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of planning that made my most demanding bridezilla clients look like easygoing sweethearts. But this time every decision was mine. Every detail reflected my taste, my values, my vision of what love should look like. I booked the rooftop garden of the Meridian Hotel, a stunning space overlooking the city skyline with views that stretched to the horizon. The venue coordinator, a sophisticated woman named Celeste, initially seemed confused by my request. "So you will be the only member of the wedding party?" she asked, pen hovering over her contract. "I will be the bride, the groom, the maid of honor, and the best man," I confirmed. "Though I am expecting quite a few guests, both in person and online." Celeste blinked twice, then smiled slowly. "In that case, let us make this extraordinary." For the flowers, I chose peonies in every shade of pink and coral, arranged with eucalyptus and baby's breath in towering arrangements that would frame the ceremony space like a living cathedral. The florist, a talented artist named Iris, understood my vision immediately. "This is not about proving anything to anyone else," I told her as we walked through her greenhouse, surrounded by blooms in every color imaginable. "This is about celebrating the love I have found for myself. It should feel joyful, abundant, unapologetic. Like a garden party in heaven," Iris murmured, making notes in her sketch pad. "I have got the perfect idea." The dress was perhaps the most important decision of all. I spent days browsing bridal boutiques, trying on gown after gown that felt like costumes designed for someone else's fantasy. They were all beautiful, but none of them felt like me. Finally, I found Luna, a designer who specialized in custom gowns for unconventional brides. When I explained what I was looking for, her eyes lit up with the kind of excitement usually reserved for Christmas morning. "I want to create something that tells your story," she said, pulling out her sketch pad. "What words would you want embroidered into the fabric of your life?" The answer came to me immediately. "I choose me." Luna designed a flowing A-line gown in ivory silk, with delicate embroidery threading those 3 words throughout the bodice in thread that caught the light like captured starlight. The sleeves were long and romantic, the train just long enough to create drama without overwhelming the space. It was elegant, feminine, and entirely mine. For the entertainment, I hired Melody's band, a group of incredibly talented musicians who specialized in reimagining popular songs. When I told them I wanted Florence and the machine covers for the ceremony, they did not even blink. "Dog days are over for your processional?" Melody suggested with a grin. "Because that seems fitting." The cake deserved its own planning committee. I worked with a phenomenal baker named Sage to create a 3-tier vegan masterpiece covered in fresh flowers and decorated with delicate sugar work that looked like lace. Each layer was a different flavor: lavender vanilla, chocolate raspberry, and lemon elderflower. It was a cake worthy of any fairy tale, except this time, I was both the princess and the prince coming to the rescue. But the most important element was the technology. I partnered with a live streaming company to set up professional cameras that would capture every moment in high definition. The thought of thousands of strangers watching me marry myself should have been terrifying, but instead, it felt like the most honest thing I had ever done. Are you nervous about the trolls? Raven asked as we did our final walkthrough of the venue the day before the ceremony. You know there are going to be people who say horrible things. I looked out over the city, watching the sun begin to set behind the skyline, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. Let them, I said finally. Their opinions about my choices say more about their own insecurities than they do about my worth. Besides, for every person who judges me, there might be one woman who sees this and realizes she does not have to wait for someone else to celebrate her. The morning of April 15th dawned clear and bright, with the kind of perfect spring weather that made everything feel possible. I woke up in my apartment alone, as I had for the past 3 years, but for the first time, that solitude felt like a gift instead of a punishment. I spent the morning getting ready with a team of professionals I had hired to make sure every detail was perfect. My makeup artist, Zara, understood the assignment completely. You want to look like the most beautiful version of yourself, she said as she worked her magic with brushes and palettes. Not like someone else's idea of beautiful. Your own. My hairstylist, River, created an elegant updo that was classic enough for a traditional wedding, but modern enough to feel authentically me. Soft tendrils framed my face, and she wove tiny pearl pins throughout that caught the light when I moved. By 2 o'clock, I was standing in front of the full-length mirror in the hotel's bridal suite, staring at a woman I barely recognized. Not because I looked different, but because I looked exactly like myself for the first time in years. Confident, radiant, unashamed. The dress fit like it had been sewn directly onto my body. The embroidered words, "I choose me," visible in the afternoon light streaming through the windows. My bouquet, a stunning arrangement of peonies and roses in soft pinks and corals, felt substantial in my hands. I was ready. The live stream began at 3:30, giving viewers time to join before the ceremony started at 4. I watched the viewer count climb on my phone. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Comments began flooding in, a mixture of support, curiosity, and predictable cruelty that I had prepared myself for. This is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. You are so brave. I wish I had your courage. This is ridiculous attention-seeking behavior. What a waste of money. She is obviously desperate. I handed my phone to Raven and took a deep breath. The opinions of strangers, whether positive or negative, were not why I was here. This was for me. For every woman who had ever been told she was not enough. For every person who had ever felt like they needed to wait for someone else's permission to celebrate their own worth. At exactly 4 o'clock, the music began. Melody's voice soared over the rooftop garden as she sang a hauntingly beautiful version of Dog Days Are Over. And I began my walk down the aisle. But I was not walking toward someone else. I was walking toward myself. The guests, a mixture of close friends, supportive family members, and a few clients who had become dear to me over the years, rose to their feet. Some were crying. Some were smiling. Some looked confused but moved despite themselves. The ceremony space was breathtaking. Iris had outdone herself, creating a floral arch that looked like something from a dream. The city skyline provided a stunning backdrop, and the late afternoon light made everything look golden and magical. But the most beautiful part was the silence that fell over the crowd as I reached the altar. Even the online comments seemed to pause as people realized they were witnessing something they had never seen before. A woman choosing herself with the same solemnity and joy usually reserved for choosing someone else. I had written my own vows, of course. Standing there with the microphone in my hand, looking out over the faces of people I loved and the cameras that would carry my words to millions of strangers, I felt a peace I had never experienced before. I stand here today not because I could not find someone to love me, I began, my voice steady and clear, but because I finally learned to love myself. A cheer went up from someone in the crowd, followed by applause that built until it was thunderous. For too long, I believed that my worth was determined by someone else's ability to see it. I waited for validation that never came. I changed myself to fit into relationships that were never meant for me. I accepted less than I deserved because I was taught that being alone was worse than being unhappy. The cameras captured every word, every gesture, broadcasting my truth to people around the world who might need to hear it. Today, I make a different choice. Today, I promise to love myself fiercely, without condition, without apology. I promise to never abandon my dreams for someone else's approval. I promise to treat myself with the same kindness I would show a dear friend. I promise to never let being alone feel like being less than whole. Tears were streaming down faces in the crowd now, and I could see Raven frantically managing the live stream comments that were flooding in too fast to read. I promised to celebrate my victories, no matter how small. I promised to comfort myself through failures, no matter how devastating. I promised to choose growth over safety, authenticity over acceptance, truth over comfort. My voice grew stronger with each word. Each promise I was making to the woman who had survived every heartbreak, every disappointment, every moment of self-doubt to arrive at this place of radical self-acceptance. I promised to build a life so beautiful, so full, so authentically mine that I will never again feel like I am waiting for it to begin. I choose me, today and every day, for the rest of my life. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the sound of someone openly weeping and the distant hum of traffic far below. Then the applause began, starting slow and building until it was deafening. People were on their feet, cheering, crying, some of them calling out words of encouragement that were lost in the beautiful chaos of the moment. I slipped the ring I had chosen onto my own finger, a stunning vintage piece with a center stone surrounded by smaller diamonds that caught the light like stars. It fit perfectly, of course, because I had chosen it for myself. "You may now kiss the bride," I announced to laughter and more applause, then kissed my own hand with a theatrical flourish that sent the crowd into renewed celebration. But the ceremony was only the beginning. The reception was everything I had dreamed of and more. The food was spectacular, prepared by a chef who understood that this meal was a celebration of independence and self-love. The speeches were heartfelt, with friends and family members sharing stories of my resilience, my generosity, my refusal to settle for less than I deserved. My friend Autumn, whom I had known since college, stood up with tears streaming down her face. "I have watched you survive things that would have broken other people," she said. "I have watched you rebuild yourself again and again, always becoming more beautiful, more authentic, more yourself. Today, I finally got to see you celebrate that strength instead of just enduring it." But it was the online response that truly overwhelmed me. The live stream had reached over 2.3 million viewers by the time the ceremony ended, and the comments had shifted from skeptical to supportive to genuinely moved. Women from around the world were sharing their own stories of heartbreak and healing, of learning to choose themselves, of finding the courage to celebrate their own worth. I needed to see this today. This is changing how I think about my own life. I am 42 and I have been waiting for someone to love me. Thank you for showing me I do not have to wait. My daughter is watching this with me and asking if she can marry herself when she grows up. I told her she should marry herself first, no matter who else she marries later. The gifts began arriving during the reception, carried up by hotel staff who looked increasingly amazed as the pile grew larger. Viewers were sending everything from kitchen appliances to gift cards to cash donations. Some were from followers who had been inspired by the ceremony. Others were from people I had once known who wanted to support what they called the most healing thing they had ever witnessed. Each gift came with a note, a story, a piece of someone's heart. "This toaster is for all the mornings you will wake up happy to be exactly who you are. Use this gift card to buy yourself flowers every week for a year. This is from my grandmother, who died last year. She always said a woman should be able to take care of herself. I think she would have loved what you did today." By the end of the evening, we had received gifts worth thousands of dollars, plus cash donations that totaled more than I made in some months. It was overwhelming and humbling and completely unexpected, but I knew exactly what I was going to do with all of it. The next morning, still wearing my pajamas and feeling slightly surreal, I began making phone calls. 7 women's shelters across the country, organizations I had researched carefully to ensure they were legitimate and effective. I explained what had happened, who I was, and what I wanted to do. The response was always the same: shocked silence followed by tears, followed by gratitude so profound it made me cry too. "You want to donate everything? the director of Safe Harbor Women's Shelter asked, her voice thick with emotion. All the appliances, the gift cards, the cash? Every single thing, I confirmed. These gifts came from people who were inspired by the idea of self-love and independence. I cannot think of a better way to honor that than by supporting women who are fighting for their own freedom and safety. Over the next week, I coordinated the delivery of dozens of items to shelters that desperately needed them. Toasters and coffee makers for communal kitchens. Gift cards for clothing and groceries that would help women starting over with nothing. Cash donations that would fund programs, pay for counseling, keep doors open for women who had nowhere else to go. Each delivery came with a note. From women who choose themselves, to women who are learning they have that right. The media attention was unexpected, but not unwelcome. News outlets picked up the story, calling it everything from the wedding of the year, to a radical act of self-love, to the charity event disguised as a ceremony. I gave interviews to morning shows, magazines, and podcasts, always steering the conversation back to the same message. Every person has the right to celebrate their own worth. But the most meaningful response came from individuals. Women reached out through social media, email, and handwritten letters to share their own stories. Divorced women who had rediscovered themselves. Single mothers who were raising children while building careers. Young women who were choosing education and adventure over early marriage. Older women who were leaving unhappy relationships to start over. You showed me that being alone is not the same as being lonely, wrote one woman. I have been afraid of leaving my marriage because I thought being single at 50 meant I had failed. Now I realize that staying in something that makes me unhappy is the real failure. Another wrote, my daughter is 16 and she watched your ceremony with me. Afterward, she said she wants to learn to love herself before she learns to love anyone else. Thank you for giving her a different model of what strength looks like. The response that moved me most came from my cousin Juniper, the one who had so casually announced that I would be alone forever if I did not settle. She called 3 weeks after the ceremony, her voice small and uncertain. I watched the live stream, she said without preamble. I have been thinking about it every day since. I waited, not sure what to expect. I have been married for 8 years, she continued, and I have never felt as happy as you looked at your own wedding. I think I married my husband because I was afraid of being judged the way I judged you. I think I owe you an apology. You do not owe me anything, I told her honestly. But maybe you owe yourself the chance to figure out what would actually make you happy. The conversation lasted 2 hours, ending with Juniper asking if I could help plan her upcoming separation. Not a divorce party, she clarified, but a ceremony to mark her decision to choose herself after years of choosing fear. I smiled, remembering my own words from the reception. To self-love. The only kind that never ghosts you. I would be honored, I told her. 6 months later, I am writing this from my home office, surrounded by thank you cards from shelter directors, photos from copycat self-marriage ceremonies around the world, and business proposals from women who want me to help them plan their own celebrations of independence. My business has evolved beyond traditional weddings to include what I call self-celebration services. Divorce parties, yes, but also career milestone celebrations, sobriety anniversaries, recovery ceremonies, and self-commitment rituals for people who want to mark their decision to choose themselves. The ring I placed on my own finger still sparkles on my left hand. A daily reminder of the promises I made to myself on that April afternoon. I have kept every one of them. I wake up each morning grateful to be exactly who I am. I have not lowered my standards or made myself smaller to fit into someone else's life. I have built a life so full and beautiful that I never feel like I am waiting for it to begin. And yes, I am still single. By choice. Because I learned something that day on the rooftop. The right person will enhance the life I have already built, not complete it. I am already complete. The woman who was terrified of being alone forever discovered that she was never alone at all. She had herself. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The live stream is still available online, watched by new viewers every day who are searching for permission to celebrate themselves. The comments continue to pour in, story after story of women who have chosen themselves after seeing someone else do it first. But the most beautiful part of the whole experience was not the viral moment or the media attention, or even the thousands of dollars donated to help other women. It was the moment I realized that I had been waiting my whole life for someone to love me unconditionally, and that someone had been there all along. She had been there through every heartbreak, every disappointment, every moment of self-doubt. She had been there during the lonely nights and the uncertain mornings, and the times when everyone else's opinion seemed more important than her own. She had been there, waiting patiently for the day I would finally turn toward her and say the words that would change everything. I choose me. If this story touched your heart, inspired you to see your own worth differently, or reminded you that you are already complete exactly as you are, please subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us share more stories of courage, self-love, and the revolutionary act of choosing yourself. Because your story matters, your worth is not negotiable, and you deserve to be celebrated, especially by yourself. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of people who have learned that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. Because when you choose you, everything changes.